It was different than anything else I'd heard. Well, especially for an RCA process, the focus on the human and that anybody could do it. It didn't take experts from the outside or software of any type to really solve the problem or understand the problem. I have been through other RCA classes, yes. Well, the class has a lot of energy, and from the very beginning, there's a lot of sharing and building of the community. The way the class was structured, it didn't take very long before we were all engrossed in trying to learn. We realize that people are put into situations that make them make decisions that make sense at the time.
Right.
So it's incumbent upon us to understand why it made sense to them at the time, because if we don't, it's going to make sense to somebody else later on. And with that, with the LCA process, when we get down to who did what wrong or who did what in hindsight we wish they had not, right? Because we know all people come to work to do a good job, but in this case, they took an action and they had a thought that we wish they hadn't.
Right.
And when we delve into those questions about why they had that thought, and we mine that valuable source between they were thinking this and we wish they had thought that, and that gap allows us to improve. There's some things that I take away from the class that have meaning for me, that make it easy for me to communicate with other people and my organization. When we have a problem and we get down to looking at the system, and then we want to stop and not talk about how we played a part in that, right? Because it's so easy the higher you go to talk about what they did, right? And what they need to do to change. So the power of the questions, what is it about the way we are? What is it about our culture that would allow or promote someone to think this way or act that way? And once we ask that question, and then we talk about what could we do collectively about that culture, and then we focus on ourselves and say, what is it about the way I am? And the biggest guy in the room asking that question, when I came out of that class and applied those techniques, it was the most powerful meeting I've ever been a part of. So I actually had many of my top leaders in my company attend. And though we had in many human performance consultants, experts, I had many of my leaders come to me and say, I understand more now about the need to learn versus blame. I understand more now about just culture. I understand more now about how we all have to see and own our part of the problem for other people to change, that they were changed.